We can animate effects similarly to animating other properties within the layer. If you see here, underneath the layer options, we have the effect option. If I twirl that down, you can see that I've already added an effect. The effects option will not appear in the layer option unless there is an effect already in the layer. We would simply add keyframes like I've done here, and the animation would tween between the two keyframes. Here we can see that there's another type of palette that has an animatable button. If we click this on, we notice that there's a different type of keyframe. This means that the keyframe will not actually tween between this keyframe and the next keyframe. Instead, the animation will hold this keyframe until it reaches the next position, similar to the hold keyframe in the keyframe assistant. We can tell the difference between each type of keyframe by its shape and its coloring. We can also double click the effect and it'll bring up the effects control, where we can also see the animation toggles. We can also make our changes here for the animation. Animating masks is similar to animating the effects and properties of a layer. In order to animate a mask, we have to add a mask, and see I've already added one here. We can animate it within the composition window, and in the layer. We can also toggle down and we find the option for the masks in the layer options. Here we see one of the masks, and we also have a toggle for animation in these options. We would simply add keyframes and the animation would work the same way as it does with the layer properties. I want to begin talking about fine-tuning and animation. Here we can see that I've animated two boxes. The green box goes up and down, and the blue box goes left and right. We can see that the boxes cross path, and what I want to do here is create an animation of a type of collision between the two boxes. Okay. At about this point, we get the idea that the collision is about to happen. And we know that the animation previous to that is going to be pretty much the same. So we can add the keyframe right before the collision. We do so by clicking on the position and adding a keyframe. Then we come down to the blue box and we add a keyframe there too. The animation stays the same because I've only added a keyframe and I haven't made any actual changes. Here we can see that the blue box is inside the green box now. What I want to do is make the illusion of a collision between the two boxes. So I'll move the green box out a little bit and I'll move the blue box back. And if we look at the animation, we can see that the collision doesn't actually happen. I can adjust this by moving the keyframes back and forth until I get the collision that I want. Here we can see the collision actually happens, but now the blue box is going inside of the green box because of the previous animation. In order to get rid of this, we can simply erase our old keyframes at the end of the animation And now what we have is the collision, and they stop. Pay attention to how the animation is coming along so that you can fine-tune your animation using keyframes and handles. And you can make much better animations by fine-tuning once your basic animation is in place. Now looking at our fine-tuned animation, we can see that it's still very basic. In order to make an animation more believable, we have to add a follow-through and randomness to the animation. So about here, where the collision takes place, we need to add a follow-through. So I'm going to change the rotation of the green square just a little bit so that it looks more like there's an actual interaction between the blue box and the green box. So I toggled the animation button for rotation, and you can see it added the keyframe. So right here, it'll start turning, and about right here it'll finish. Now we can see that the green box has more of a collision with the blue box, but the blue box is still untouched or unaffected. What we'll do is add a rotation to the blue box also. The reason I don't want to use the same numerical value for the rotation of the two boxes is it'll look too processed and less organic. So here I add just a little bit of a rotation, and I'm going to use the position to move it just a little bit. And we can see that the hit now seems to have an impact. This is the follow-through. And pay attention to the randomness of properties to create a more organic animation.